welcome or welcome back. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Kat, and I usually post videos about my little fur baby Padfoot here, or about my horse Polly, but today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I am going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read in the month of August. It was a very successful reading month. I got 6 books read, quite a few rereads, but also some new books, and I'm going to be sharing with you my thoughts on them, whether or not I would recommend them, who I would recommend them to, and all that good stuff. So if you're a reader, if you're looking for some book suggestions, maybe if you're looking for some gift ideas for the bookworm in your life, there are definitely some good gift options here as well. So let's get started. Okay, this is just your heads up that there might be some spoilers ahead. I mean, I don't think there really are. I don't think I really said anything that you wouldn't find in the synopsis of the book, but just to be safe, this is your warning that there may potentially be some spoilers, I guess. Again, I didn't reveal any endings or any plot twists or anything like that, like any crucial information like that, but I just feel the need to say this because otherwise I'll get someone that comments something along the lines of, you didn't tell me, you told me you spoiled, blah, blah. Anyways, yeah, okay, that's all. Proceed. Okay, so the first book that I read in August is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Sanderson. Now, I technically read the first few chapters about midway through July, but I was reading a different book at the time, so I was like, okay, stop reading this and wait until you finish the other one. And so then I read the rest of it in the first couple days of August, and I blew through it. Like, I read it so quickly. I ate it up. I am obsessed with this book. Like, this book needs a movie adaptation right the fuck now. Seriously. So this book is marketed as a book that will appeal to fans of The Princess Bride, and I have not read The Princess Bride, but I have seen the movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Apart from Harry Potter, it's probably my favorite movie of all time. So this book follows the story of 17-year-old Tress, who lives on a planet that, instead of having seas made of water, has seas made of deadly spores that fall from the different moons that the planet orbits around, which is a really cool concept. And the way that the intricate magic system of this book works, or I guess it's not even necessarily magic because I guess it would be science to their world. Anyways, ships can actually float on the seas of spores. And so Tress lives on an island that nobody wants to live on, and so because of that, they are forced to stay there. Unless you're a sailor or a noble, you are not allowed to leave the island. But when Tress's best friend, and the boy that she soon realizes that she's in love with, gets taken off the island by his father to go find a wife, and then gets kidnapped, she decides she's gonna do the impossible. She's gonna leave the island. She's gonna sail the Emerald Sea of spores, and she's gonna go save this man. And you might be thinking, oh, that's just like, that's a very common story of like, okay, the girl's gonna do the thing that no one does, and she's gonna go save the guy. But it's such a different it's so different because it's not like the main character, like she's not like an assassin. She's not a trained warrior. She's just a girl. She's just a girl who loves collecting cups, and he sends her cups, which is so cute. He literally sends her cups and letters on his travels. It's so cute. Anyways, and so this girl just uses her compassion and her loyalty and her intelligence, and she ends up on a pirate ship, and she makes friends, and then she saves her friends, and she meets a talking brat, and she saves the man that she's in love with. She does all of the things, and it's such a heartwarming, like, cozy fantasy because even though the stakes are technically high because she's trying to save this person, it also, the whole time, it kind of feels like it's not like end of the world stakes like so many fantasy books nowadays. If you need a good laugh, this book is perfect for you because the humor of this book is like Princess Bride meets Lemony Snicket, like Series of Unfortunate Events, which is such the perfect combination. And the whole story is told from the perspective of a very unlikely narrator. And overall, I don't even really have the words to express it. I would say this is definitely a very good book to gift. I think this can appeal to anyone from the ages of like 10 or 12 to adults. I think it's got something for everyone. It's funny, it's a heartwarming love story, it's a story about friendship, unlikely heroes. Overall, it's just fabulous. So I don't really rate books, but if I did, like, this is definitely up there as in like my top 10 of books that I've ever read. The next book that I read is a reread. It's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. If you don't know, and if you've only seen me from this channel, you wouldn't know, but I'm a huge Potterhead. My dog's name is Padfoot, for crying out loud. I love Harry Potter. I'm obsessed with it. And I've read all of the books at least twice. I've read the first 3 probably like 7 times. But from 4 to 7, I haven't read more than a couple times because I tend to start a reread of the series and then I get distracted halfway through. This is just what happens. So I realized recently, I was like, I really need to read number 4 through 7. I need to read these again. And so I started with number 4, and there are a lot of things that happen in these books that I forget sometimes because I don't think I've read 4 through 7 in at least a decade. Because I read the books first when I was 7, and then I reread them a lot in like the following few years. I don't really feel like I need to explain the story of Harry Potter because I feel like everyone kind of knows the story of Harry Potter. If you don't, I'm sure you can find another video that explains the story of Harry Potter. But the 4th one is where the Triwizard Tournament happens, and I have to say, like, there are a lot of things that happen in this book that I wish happened in the movie as well. I really wish Winky was in the movie. I really wish that Hermione's organization Spew was in the movie. If you haven't, you need to read Harry Potter. I think there's something in it for everyone, as again, a story of love and friendship and magic and just everything. A story of acceptance as well, despite who the author unfortunately is. I love this book. It was great. It was a fabulous reread. I actually half read it in the physical copy and half listened to the audiobook. The audiobooks of the Harry Potter books are also just fabulous. So if you're not really a reader, I would try listening to the audiobooks instead because you still get everything and the character voices are just absolutely amazing. I forget the name of the narrator. It might be Jim Dale, or am I making that up? I don't know. Harry Potter, if you haven't read it, you need to. If you have, you know why I love it. Now, when I was finishing off Goblet of Fire, I started reading Apprentice to the Villain because I read Assistant to the Villain a few months ago for the first time, and I loved it. Like, I think with Assistant to the Villain, I plowed through it in like 2 days, so I was waiting for Apprentice to the Villain to come out. I will say that I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first one. It was still great. It was still very good, but I definitely found myself getting a little bit annoyed at certain points in time. If you don't know, Assistant to the Villain, which is the first book in the series, is a story about a girl named Evie who just happens to run into the big bad of the kingdom that she lives in, who is literally nicknamed the Villain, like everyone just knows him as the Villain. And she ends up becoming his assistant and ends up, of course, starting to fall for him, and he starts falling for her, and she's like the sunshine, happy-go-lucky girl, and he is very much the I am the darkness that flaps in the night. And she kind of starts bringing something else out of him, and he starts bringing a little bit of a darker side out of her, and it is very much like a cozy fantasy. It's very cute. Like, there's magical creatures in it, and there's love, and there's friends, and there's a dragon named Fluffy, and it's a really good book. It's very heartwarming, and I did enjoy Apprentice to the Villain, the second one, but I don't think it was quite as good. I found myself getting a little bit annoyed with Evie at certain points because it just felt like the author was trying to play into the sunshine character a little bit too much, especially for where we kind of left off with her in the first book. I felt like there were a few things that Evie said in the second book that I don't think she necessarily would have, just based off of where her character was left in the first one. So sometimes I was like, this kind of feels out of place. It just felt like her character kind of followed the same development trajectory as she did the first one. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, she got to here and then she's going to here. It kind of felt like she went to here in the first one and then she started back at the same spot and then went there again. And maybe that's just my perception of it. Maybe someone else who read it would think a bit differently, but that's just kind of how I interpreted it. But I still loved it. It was still a very good read. I still read it very quickly. I think this is going to be one of those situations where, because I think it's going to be a trilogy. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. But I know there will be another book. But I think this will be one of those situations where it's like the first one is great, the second one is okay, and then the third one is great. You know what I mean? Like that kind of happens in a series sometimes. I think that's kind of where it's gonna be. Next, I read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Again, I don't think I really need to explain much of what happens in this book because I feel like everyone who reads has read Harry Potter. I also, again, partially read the physical copy and partially listened to the audiobook, but sorry. These copies of the books have such good book smell. I love a good book smell. I will say, I've always had the bit of an unpopular opinion. A lot of people I find don't like Order of the Phoenix because they find it really slow and hard to get through. It's always been one of my favorites of the series, to be completely honest, because I think I don't take it as it's going slow, I take it as there's a lot happening. And I think my ADHD brain just kind of likes that. And I will say, like, that having not read this book in at least 5 years, reading it as an adult, I see a lot more of myself in Harry than I did as a kid. Because when I first read Harry Potter when I was like 7 years old, I wasn't really struggling with like mental health issues at all. I didn't really first develop anxiety until I was about 8 or 9. And so I didn't really see, and like my depression didn't come for a few years, till a few years after that, till I was about 11 or 12. But reading it now, like you can really see like as an adult that Harry is depressed. Like in the first, like I mean through the whole book, but you know, he's having these night terrors. He saw his friend tortured and killed in front of him. In the first few chapters, it talks about him lying in bed staring at the ceiling for like 4 hours, not really wanting to eat. He's lashing out at his loved ones. And I was like, wow, I can actually see a lot more of myself in Harry than I did as a kid. And as a kid, I feel like everyone, their favorite character in Harry Potter, it's never Harry. Like Harry is no one's favorite character. But like, and I didn't see a lot of myself in Harry as a kid. I mostly saw myself in Hermione and Ginny. But now as an adult, I see a lot more of myself in Harry than I did. But yeah, I really enjoyed this reread. Okay, this was my favorite read of the month. This is one of my favorite, again, in my top 10. And I don't know if that's because it's the best book ever written or if that's because it was what I really needed at the time. I just finished this book on, when did I finish it? I finished it on Sunday, and it's currently Friday. The Spellshop by Beth Durst. Oh my goodness. The best cottagecore, cozy, fantasy romance. It's just so good. I don't even feel like I can properly describe it on my own, so I'm just gonna read the synopsis in the front so that you can really get everything. And I also really hope that I'm pronouncing the main character's name right. This is how I've been pronouncing it in my head as I've been reading it, but anyways. Keela has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, she and her assistant Kaz, a magically sentient spider plant, have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbooks, preserving their magic for the city's elite. When a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz flee with all of the spellbooks they can carry and head to a remote island Keela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Keela discovers, much to her dismay, a nosy and very handsome neighbor who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and to help fix up her new home. In need of income, Keela identifies something that even the bakery in town doesn't have: jam. With the help of an old recipe book her parents left her and a bit of illegal magic, her cottage garden is soon covered in ripe berries. But magic can do more than make a life a little sweeter, so Keela risks the consequences of using unsanctioned spells and opens the island's first ever much-needed secret spell shop. So Keela basically, when she returns home to her island of Cultry, her home island of Cultry, she realizes that it's a lot more run down and in need of a lot of help than when she left as a kid. And so she basically, in these spell books, she figures out which spells are going to help like rejuvenate the trees and bring and help protect the island from storms, and what's going to help bring the island back to better health. And she like secretly kind of sells these spells along with the jam, and it's just such a warm, cozy, like, it's so weird because I've always been the kind of person that needs action right away, but I don't know if this was just the palate cleanser I needed or what, but even though there wasn't really much action happening and it wasn't like, it's not high stakes or anything like that, I ate it up. It was just so good. It literally felt like it was the perfect book to read at the cottage, honestly, because it was just so cozy, and it's the kind of book that you read that feels like going home. You know what I mean? It was just very comforting. One thing that I thought was really, really unique about this book was that the world that they live in, all of the people like in town are like different magical creatures basically. But that's just the way it is, and that's normal. Like, Keela is a human technically, but she has blue skin and blue hair, and she gets magenta freckles on her face from the sun, and the baker in town has fur and horns, and the mean neighbor that nobody likes has scales instead of skin, and the healer has 12-pronged antlers and wings, but his body is a man, and that's just normal. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, you walk into town, you don't get surprised by so-and-so that's got red skin and bright purple hair, because that's just the way that it is. And I thought that that was really cool and really unique, because I haven't really read anything like that before. And I love the assistant being a sentient spider plant. Like, not even, like, he doesn't have a face, like, he doesn't have eyes, he doesn't have a mouth, but he can talk and he can read, and he's just a spider plant that, like, moves himself around by his tendrils, and that was really cool. And I love the love story in this book, because she is, like, Keela is so me, because she is antisocial, because like I'm a social person, but I'm socially anxious, and that's what she comes to realize, that she actually wants to be around people more than she thought she did, because you know, people start helping her, and then she's like, oh, I actually kind of want to go into town and see Bryn and see Laren, and oh, I actually kind of want Laren around, but people are hard. I'm out of energy for the day. I don't really want to talk to anyone. And I was like, that is very much me. And like, Laren is it's just such a wholesome, cute thing, because it's not like he's not like, oh, if you want to watch the world burn, I'll set it on fire for you. No, do you want me to build you bookshelves? If a man offered to build me bookshelves, or even buy me bookshelves, but if a man offered to build me bookshelves, we're getting hitched. Sorry, that doesn't make sense if you don't know what this ring is. This is a Claddagh ring. It's an Irish wedding band. I'm not Irish, but wearing it this way, the way that I wear it, says you're single. And if you put it on the other hand and you put it the other way, then it means that you're married. There's other meanings for it, different ways to wear it. But anyways, point being, if a man offers to buy me bookshelves, build me bookshelves, you got a woman for life right here. Anyways, this book was absolutely fabulous. I would highly recommend this for anyone who loves fantasy, anyone who loves romance, anyone who loves cozy books, cozy fantasy, cottagecore fantasy, even just someone who likes cozy, low stakes books with some romance and you're not a huge fantasy person. I think you'd still love this, because it's not like super fantasy, because it's not like, oh, I have the powers of fire and water. It's like, okay, these are old books and I'm a librarian. Let's read through this. Let's experiment with this spell. Let's get the ingredients and put them together and say the words, and oh, that didn't work too well. Okay, let's try something a little bit different. There's like some experimentation in it. But yeah, this was fabulous. This was absolutely amazing. Highly recommend. This would also make a great gift. Last book of the month was another reread, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I really hope that's how you pronounce her name. I don't know. If it's not, I'm really sorry. But this is a really good book. So I read this back when it first came out. When was that? That was a long time ago, I feel like. 2018. Not that long, but long. 6 years. Is that only 6 years? Maybe close to 7? I don't know. I'm bad at math. Anyways, Children of Blood and Bone was, when I first read it, was like a revolutionary thing to me, because at the time there weren't really any fantasy books on the market that were built in and like rooted in cultures other than like white European culture. Like, all fantasy books, like, you think about it, like in general, kind of pulled from like our classic idea of like magic and fairy tale and folklore from European cultures. And so this was, I felt like, and I could be wrong, but the way that I remember it, this was a very like trailblazing book because it's more rooted in like African culture, and I know that that's a very broad term because that's a continent, like that's like saying like Asian culture and North American culture. Like there's many different countries in Africa and many different cultures. I don't know specifically what this is rooted in. I think it might be Nigerian, but don't quote me on that because I don't actually know where I'm getting that idea from. I might have read that or I might be making it up completely. But anyways, the point being, it was so cool to see a book that was like completely different from anything that I'd read in the fantasy verse at the time. So in the Kingdom of Orisha, where this book takes place, magic has been gone for 11 years. And people who have magic were known as the Magi, but their powers, like their magic, did not manifest until they were 13. So up until they turned 13, they were called diviners, and you knew who was going to be a Magi because diviners are all born with like striking white hair. And so now that magic is gone, well, the king never liked magic. And so, of course, the diviners, they are, you know, the people who live in the slums. They're the people who are in the worst poverty because they are looked down upon by everybody else. And they are referred to as maggots very commonly by nobility and by anyone who holds the harsh views that the diviners are less than. And so the story follows Zélie Adebola, who is the daughter of a very powerful reaper. Well, her mother was a very powerful reaper, which was one of the different magical abilities that you could have, which was like power over the dead, over the spirits. And she very quickly gets thrown into the quest of bringing magic back when the Princess Amari basically grabs her hand on the streets of Lagos and turns out to have this scroll that is able to bring back, like, give a diviner their magic. And so then Zélie and Amari and Zélie's brother Zane, they all end up on this quest to go bring magic back. And it is just, again, it is just really cool. Like, the magic system is really cool. The way that they actually, like, they have incantations that they have to say for their magic, but then each of the different magical abilities has a light that a color of light that accompanies their magic. It's just a really cool book, and I do love it. It's I think it's YA technically, but I think it still will appeal to adults. Anyone who really loves fantasy, like, this is just hardcore, is a fantasy book. It is more high stakes because it's about bringing magic back and changing the world pretty much. It's a really cool magic system. I would highly recommend it to anyone who loves fantasy. I think it's great for anyone ages like 13 and up, probably, or younger, honestly. I have to keep reminding myself that I read Harry Potter when I was 7, and there are parts of Harry Potter that are pretty dark. Well, it's probably fine for anyone younger than that. I mean, like, if you're a parent, you know your kid, you know what they can handle. There is torture in it. It's not super graphic. They do mention sexual assault. It very much tackles the concepts of racism and unlawful arrest and murder. But yeah, if you're a parent, you know what your kid can handle. If you're a teen or an adult, you know what you can handle. But I think it's a very good book, and it has a great fantasy map. The front, any book with a map is a book that I am most likely gonna like. Yeah, this is a really good book. I loved it. I highly recommend. So those were all of the books that I read in the month of August. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you maybe found a book here that you are going to add to your TBR. I think all of these are great options. I think Tress of the Emerald Sea and Spellshop, I think those are great gift options. I mean, I think any of them are great gifts, but if you want to offer, if you want to give someone like a standalone, Tress of the Emerald Sea and Spellshop, those were my two favorite reads of the month. And just like perfect, like 10 out of 10, absolutely loved them. I think they were great. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, they're falling. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this from me, let me know. And if not, go watch a different video from somebody else. But yeah, I have a lot of books that I want to get read this month. I think I currently, like on my TBR for this month, I for sure have 4 already. Hopefully I can get through, but we'll see, because September is starting, which means more things to do, less time to read. All right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.